every Pole should all his life be prepared for oppression or exile. Well, I cannot think of a better statement to help me start this presentation than this one, which belongs to Prince Czartoryski, an important Polish nobleman, a major figure in the history of Poland in the 19th century, and one of Chopin's friends. I'm holding Alan Walker's book, Frédéric Chopin, A Life and Times, which I believe it is a great source of access into the turbulent history of Poland, the history of Chopin's family, the steps that he had to take during his life, his musical entourage, testimonies, lots of them, of his contemporaries and close friends, and also musical insights and explanations on various of his works. According to historical sources, the Polish dance, later named as the Polonaise, was danced in the 16th century in Krakow's royal castle. Its origins can be traced back around the 15th century in wedding festivities as a peasant dance. It was also called the walking dance, and thanks to Polish nobility, it became popular across the country. It was later named the Polonaise around the 17th century, and it was mostly performed in a rather moderate tempo. It had a 3/4 time signature, and it was unlike any other dance of the day. Fun fact, if you Google this word, of course you get details about the origins, how it developed throughout the years, but you also get a second meaning. I found out that a Polonaise is also a vegetable dish garnished with chopped, hard-boiled egg yolk, breadcrumbs, and parsley. I read about it, I read the recipe, and it seems easy to make, so I'll give it a try. In Poland, the Polonaise was a solemn dance of nobility, as its lofty and formal style matched their gallant manners and pride. It has a processional character and consisted of a promenade in couples. So they would go around the ballroom in a stately manner, therefore lending their movements a chivalrous trait or quality. Apart from being a ballroom dance, the Polonaise played a political role as well. Its rhythm provided the accompaniment for many patriotic songs. Thanks to Polish emigres, it was introduced in France. It was designed to entertain the French royalty, and therefore it soon became popular and known throughout Europe. Over time, the Polonaise ceased to be merely a dance with song accompaniment, and it became chiefly instrumental, and its melody also became more ornamental. In terms of form, it was often performed with a contrasting middle section because it competed with another court dance, the minuet. The Polonaise actually ended up borrowing the name of the trio for the middle section. So we could say that the form of a Polonaise is A, B, A. In the annals of music history, we find the Italian notation alla polacca, which means a piece of music performed in the style and character of a Polonaise. There are many composers that actually wrote Polonaises, such as Bach, Beethoven, Schumann, Liszt, Scriabin, Clara Schumann, Weber, Chopin. Of course, Chopin was a lot influenced by Weber. Also, McDowell. I discovered that McDowell wrote a set of 12 etudes, Opus 46, and the very last one is called Polonaise. Also, Tchaikovsky, in his opera Evgeny Onegin, has a movement called Polonaise. There are two main rhythmical patterns that allow us to recognize the Polonaise. First one consists of the succession of 1 8 note, 2 16 notes, and 4 8 notes at the opening of the dance, such as the second one is the cadential formula of 4 16 notes followed by 2 quarter notes. To have a better grasp of the meaning and character of the Polonaise, I would like to share with you a couple of ideas that I found very interesting and enlightening, I could say, in Franz Liszt's book, Life of Chopin. Liszt was a very close friend of Chopin's, and I believe this book has a lot of useful information and valid and useful information about Chopin the composer and also Chopin the human being. In chapter 2, Liszt talks about the national character of the Polonaise. He actually gives us a general vision over these works. In chapter 3, he talks about the antagonistic sibling of the Polonaise, which is the mazurka. Of course, some could say that this book is a little bit exaggerated because of the romanticized language in which it was written, but personally I liked it a great deal. So, returning to the Polonaise, this form is a manifestation of the noblest feelings and traditions of Asian Poland. One is struck by the unyielding determination and solemnity which are said to have been the innate features of great Poles. There is a fighting spirit in these feelings and traditions, but the courage and gallantry are combined with the carefree attitude so typical of this chivalrous people. The Polonaise radiates calm and prudent strength and seem to convey the picture of the Poles from past ages, which can be found in their chronicles. White-shouldered and strong people who boasted sharp intelligence, piety, and immense courage, people who were courteous and gallant in the field, before and after the battle. Sounds like a long bygone era, doesn't it? Now, I would like to talk about a historical tidbit that has to do a lot with Liszt's words. I just read. Between the 16th and the 18th centuries, the Polish warriors were very much known as the winged hussars, aka angels of death, because of their battle costumes, armors, designed to both impress and scare the enemy. They had 1 or 2 huge wings with impressive feathers attached to the back of their armors. One of the most famous battles in the history of Poland was the battle in Vienna in 1683, where the winged hussars chased away the Ottomans under the command of their fearless leader, Sobieski. These brave soldiers were the elite of Polish cavalry until they were disbanded in the late 1770s when Poland was divided into 3 partitions, hopelessly, I could say. Therefore, Poland lost its independence until 1918. Throughout his short life, Chopin wrote 16 Polonaises. Not all of them have happy ending, and not all of them are triumphant in mood. Some tell us of the loss and sour taste of defeat, others of the pain and anguish of remembrance. However, all of them evoke the same spirit of pride of Chopin's homeland. There are two editions that are widely preferred and used. One of them is Paderewski's, and another one is Chords. There is a couple of differences between these two. First of all, Chords edition has only 7 polonaises, from Opus 26 to Opus 61. The last one bears the title of Polonaise Fantasy. The Paderewski's edition has all the 16, and actually the 7 polonaises that Chords edition contains are the only ones that have opus number. The rest of them were published during Chopin's youth or after his death. Now, in my work, I've used both of them because I found both of them fascinating and extremely useful. Paderewski's edition is very scholarly, I could say. It respects the manuscript. In his preface, it actually says that tried to be faithful to the manuscript. Chords edition, however, contains a lot of interpretative suggestions, and it has a lot of metaphors and poetic words for each of the polonaises. And actually, what I find fascinating about this is that he helps us form a visual image on each of the polonaises. And I didn't use visual image randomly because Chopin was an excellent drawer. While attending the Warsaw Lyceum, he took up drawing lessons, and I could find online a lot of his drawings and sketches. So I think Chords edition completes the Paderewski's edition perfectly. I've studied first 2 opus numbers, Opus 26 and Opus 40. And these are actually 2 sets of 2 polonaises each. One of the challenges I've encountered and I had to solve in order to make the music sound convincing and sound artistic and make a valid speech was to carefully balance the use of tempo rubato and tempo giusto. Yes, it is romantic music, but the main characteristic of a polonaise is to maintain a steady rhythm, whenever is the case. So I had to identify those moments where it was the case. So it was, of course, up to the context, but I had to pay attention, to take heed of this matter. Now, another challenge was to find meaning behind the repeat signs. And I thought of a comparison. In our daily conversations, we often repeat words, repeat phrases, sentences in a louder or softer voice, depending on the circumstances, of course. But the purpose is always to stress, to emphasize ideas. So I think it's the same case with this. I strongly encourage that all the repeat signs be taken, and not just that, not just mechanically, but also to be part of the music. So in other words, when I have to repeat a section, it's actually I continue with the story. I continue with whatever I want to say. I don't repeat. I don't go back. This is the meaning that I've got for at least for this matter here, for this polonaises. And it's actually very encouraging, I could say, because the performer gets to use imagination, and oftentimes you can actually find differences in dynamics, in stretching the tempo, in the use of pedals. So let's take, for example, the very first one. In C sharp minor, it is marked fortissimo from the very beginning, but I wouldn't start with my whole power, but I would keep from that power and tension for the repeat sign. Now let's say that I've played throughout the section and I want to take the repeat sign. Exaggeration of tempo, of dynamics, of anything, but actually it should be part of the music. And also continuing with this, so it bears the marking of piano in parentheses. So I would say that second time, bring it out more. Now, this is a moment that's very romantic. It's like accumulating tension, but then it goes nowhere. It goes into a pianissimo. It falls down immediately. It's like a thought pops in your head, you get excited for a second, but then you realize that no, this is not going to happen, this is not possible. So when I take the repeat, personally, I bring out the left because it has a fork. So it has a crescendo, and I find it beautiful. In all four Polonaises, the middle section is contrasting with the outer sections, and overall it bears meno mosso marking, and it has a singing quality. It brings out the bel canto tradition, and I remember that I read that Chopin preferred the Pleyel piano, which had a silvery tone and light action. So I think I like very much this silvery tone comparison. So I think the sound that one should get in this middle section should be silvery, like. For instance, and there are certain tricks to do this that have to do with engineering. For instance, let's take the middle section of the same Polonaise. Now it's in D flat major. A certain trick to bring this out very poignantly, I could say, but not aggressive, is to not play both hands at the same time, but actually to distribute weight on the right hand by playing after the left hand. So very light action on the left and a lot of power on the not on the tip of the finger, but on the fleshy part. Polonaise, Opus 26, in E flat minor. The middle section is very tricky. At least this is the way I thought of it, because it is built of short motifs separated by breaks. And yes, it bears the cantabile trait. Yes, it does, compared to the outer sections. But it's not the same cantabile that we find in the first one, in Opus 26, number 1. And it's very hard to grasp, to catch, to display the whole idea, very unified idea, because here very clearly a dialogue. This is so clear to me, actually, between him a Polish gentleman, a nobleman, and this is her, very pensive, very, and actually trying to deny everything that he says. Another thing would be to make the staccato notes sound differently. So, in other words, not to have the same touch of staccato all over the middle section. Not at all. Speaking of pauses, and because I said that the first challenge I've encountered was to carefully distribute rubato and tempo giusto. In the second Polonaise, the very beginning is really, really hard to realize. It bears a threatening character. It sounds more like a conspiracy taking place, and it's very confusing, actually, because it bears a tempo. Tempo mark. It's not actually tempo marking, but it's more like a character marking, maestuoso, and then it says poco ritenuto in the second bar, and then accelerando in the third bar, and then again poco ritenuto, and then again accelerando. So it's actually going back and forth like this. It's undecided. What I found not very pleasing in Alfred Cortot's edition, in this passage in particular, so I decided not to follow his suggestion in terms of pedaling, was that he put paddle, he proposed to hold the paddle throughout the pause until here. But in the manuscript, in the Paderewski's edition, the paddle is marked here. and this is a little bit dry. And actually, I go with whatever I see in the Paderewski's edition here, because I believe that the tension, it's suppressed. It's getting a little bit muffled when the pedal is down. It's more like I start, but I stop immediately. So the audience is confused. Of course, and it's legato, so it shouldn't sound articulate, but it's legato from the fingers. And later on, in the same Polonaise, there is a section in D flat major, which actually it should be performed absolutely in tempo. Here is the steadiness that I was talking about earlier, and it's a difficult passage to realize. So I think, a big help would be the metronome. What I like in Corto's edition is that at some point he gives advice how to practice a certain passage. For instance, here, for the right hand, he divided the passage into 3 parts: practice in octaves, practice in thirds, practice in sixths. And I like that he offers advice like attack the dissonance of the 9th chords vigorously in both hands. And then it says, finally, add a full-blooded crescendo to the impetuous descent of the arpeggio. Which actually, he's very right. Now, personal remark, I get to bring out the rhythm, the Polonaise rhythm in the left hand. Now the next set, Opus 40, contains one of the most often played Polonaises, the one in A major, which alongside the A flat major one, Opus 53, I believe they have passed magna cum laude, the popularity competition over time. So much so that both of them were used in a special cartoon where a very beloved character, Woody the Woodpecker, performs a concert with Andy the Panda. They are a very formidable duo. And the show ends up in fire, in flames. The stage gets fired up. The concert happens in a barn in front of other domestic animals. Anyway, it's a very fun show to watch, fun episode to watch, and the music is exclusively by Chopin. Now, this A major Polonaise has nothing bleak, has nothing worrisome. On the contrary, it's triumphant, it's full of promises of hope. I would say defying promises up to a point. And it has a risk, it has a major risk. It can become, it can be performed very loud, and eventually it can become annoyingly boring. But it is not like that at all. So in order to avoid this, I think there are some things that any performer should bear in mind. First of all, the voicing of the chords. There are a lot of chords here, and the balance in the ear should be extremely well done. For instance, at the beginning, and actually the distribution of weight in both hands should not be equal. So in other words, a very light left, and the upper note in the right hand should be with a lot of weight. Another trick to avoid loudness, unnecessary loudness, I mean, is to think orchestrally. In other words, anytime this comes up, imagine brass instruments, for instance, and under no circumstance should be performed forte, because yes, it says forte from the very beginning till, I don't know, later on it says fortissimo. So the outer sections are marked forte and fortissimo. So, but it should not be the case. I think this forte and fortissimo is a matter of character and of tension. But the orchestration should exist. And also the rhythm. I would go into a bit of detail, and I would say that the rhythm should not be played by the book. In other words, when this ends and this comes up, I would go a little bit with some stretching here before moving onwards. So, and also the 16 notes, not, but with a bit of enthusiasm, I would say. And also, second time, when this arpeggio comes, this large, broadened chord comes up, it should have, yes, it should have a singing quality. It should have a very proud quality. And also, another trick is to organize the phrases. First one, second one, third one, and final. Okay, this for this first paragraph fragment. And I think organizing ideas and phrases and giving priority it's very important in order to avoid boredom and to make the music interesting, because it is an interesting music. Now the middle section, it's pretty much in the same character, but it still bears more moments of singing quality and has a singing tone than the other sections for sure. So I imagine here Polish riders. Also, very important to not play the rhythm by the book. Otherwise it doesn't sound. For instance, also here, so it's a matter of left hand. Again, perform changes whenever the repeat signs come up. For instance, at the end, at the end of this paragraph. Sorry. So let's say the first time I go forward, but second time, in order to connect with what comes next, I would go the opposite. Its sister, Polonaise Opus 40, number 2, is in C minor, and it bears a huge contrast. I like the characterization that Cortot offers for this one. The rhythm of this Polonaise projects an image of glory being moored. Its mood of tragic nobility is in deliberate contrast to the enthusiastic character of the preceding Polonaise. And yes, it's like, so if the A major offers the promise of a victory, this one actually is the reality. This one actually gives the image of defeat and of loss. And also the key of C minor is dark, and the steady rhythm of 8 notes actually brings out a feeling of resignation, I would say. I like also that Cortot offers advice on how to practice the chords. The chords should absolutely sound simultaneously, and I like that he says to perform each chord, so holding, let's say, first 3 notes and repeating the top note, and then reverse, performing the next one, and so on and so forth, until each of the note is felt in the finger. I think this one also bears a risk of becoming heavy, of becoming of having too much weight, unnecessary weight, actually. It says allegro maestuoso, yes, but how much? It's a matter of how much. Also, in the middle section, it says sostenuto, and I see this as meno mosso, say, so a bit slower in tempo, but also over the entire Polonaise, it has this feeling of defeat, and for me, I think it's very important that any performer should consider these two integrated in the same story. So, as I said at first, the A major one is like going to the battle, singing a marching song and feeling confident, but actually reality hits in the second, and the result is not as expected. And so the same thing should happen for the previous set, Opus 26. Connect both Polonaises under the same umbrella, under the same story. I'm going to continue studying these Polonaises, and of course the next one is Opus 44, the great F sharp minor one, because I consider them worthy of studying, of practicing, of performing, and I think they should be approached with the same amount of curiosity, of involvement as any other works by Chopin.